This is KGW News at Sunrise.
I would say the demand is outpacing the current supply.
COVID testing appointments may be a little harder to come by. Doctors say they are overrun with requests from parents who have kids heading back to school. This morning, the options available to meet that growing demand.
Meanwhile, the demand for tickets to see the Ducks and Beavers play football this season is down. Both schools have seen a drop in ticket sales. Bad weather last Saturday didn't help, and COVID policies are also a factor.
And fall begins this afternoon. Wow, how about that harvest moon to kick off the autumnal equinox? Okay, we want to know from you guys, what are some of your favorite fall activities and holidays? We're going to be talking about that coming up this morning on Sunrise.
It is a Wednesday morning, September the 22nd. Brenda Braxton, do you ever call it autumn or do you always call it fall?
Always fall. I can barely say autumnal equinox.
and it arrives, fall does, at 12, you told me 21 p.m.
Yes, sir.
So I'm guessing like noon, it's like 86 and sunny, and then at 12:00 or 12:21, it's 68 and cloudy. Is that how that works?
That's how that works. And by the way, we'll have a challenge. So at noon today, if you can run outdoors and go, it's summer, and then at 12:30, if you can run out and go, it's fall, that would be fantastic. And we'll try to get all this on camera.
Citywide.
Of course.
This is not catching on.
All right, hey, we have a weak system approaching. Right now, this thing looks pretty good, right? Some heavier rain offshore. This is going to be weakening, but absolutely expecting some rain showers to hit the coast in the coming hours. And it may hold together enough, remember, for what I think would be some traces of rain, or maybe 1 or 2 1/100ths of an inch of some showers moving through later this morning here in the valley. Cloudiness 57 out the door this morning. That chance of a rain shower or a sprinkle at lunchtime, 64. Should be dry after that, and 74 degrees when the kids get out of school. By that time, of course, it will be fall.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Rod. Well, our big story this morning, a shortage of COVID tests frustrating a lot of people, especially parents.
So a growing number of kids need tests right now in order to stay in school. Catherine Cook took a look at the best ways for parents to get their kids tested.
Good morning. Good morning.
In-person learning is back, but with COVID bearing down and most kids too young to get vaccinated, fear of transmission is still real for parents, including Hans Heinzer.
We didn't even make it 2 weeks before we had our first fear, and it turned out to be okay.
But getting the COVID tests that led to that reassurance was more complicated than Hans expected.
So yesterday it was actually very easy. I called my pediatrician and we were able to get in within a couple of hours. And my second kid was sick this morning, and we called the same pediatrician and they said we're no longer able to accept testing. We are overrun with too many tests from kids in school.
I would say the demand is outpacing the current supply.
Jessica Guernsey is public health director for Multnomah County. She says they've added more testing hours to their clinics to meet demand, while trying to balance demand for vaccinations.
It's really a matter of staffing. The entire healthcare system in public health is stretched beyond its limit right now.
So what should parents do?
To get a test quickly, the first thing to try is to call your pediatrician or your healthcare provider.
Dr. Peter Reed is a pediatrician and president of Pediatric Associates of the Northwest. He says even they suffered briefly from a shortage of testing supplies, though they're fully stocked now. While it might be tedious, Reed says testing children is a critical part of protecting schools and the greater community from COVID.
Even for trained providers like us, it's not possible to tell from one child to the next or one person to the next which symptoms are COVID and which symptoms are any number of other cold viruses.
If a pediatrician isn't an option, check with your child's school. A growing number of them are offering COVID tests. Another option, call 211. Operators can direct you to testing sites both near and far. There's also a drive-through testing option at the Expo Center that requires appointments, and there are several county-run clinics.
If you go to a community test site, you are likely going to have to wait at least a bit of time to get a test, and I know sometimes that can be difficult for kids.
Hans Heinzer is grateful his kids are healthy, but he expects more tests are in their future. He hopes what his family went through will help others in the same boat.
I just want there to be more information for the parents to get their test. A little cold doesn't keep their kid out of school for 3 or 5 days.
Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Minimizing the spread of COVID while keeping kids in school is really the big balancing act that public health officials are trying to pull off. Multnomah County health leaders say transmission in schools right now is still very low, although we have seen situations already this month where entire schools had to be shut down. All students at Reynolds High School in Troutdale, for example, are back in distance learning this week. Lead County Health Officer Dr. Jennifer Vines talked about weighing the pros and the cons of keeping kids in school versus sending them home.
We can talk about closing a school for public health reasons, but that's not going to keep kids from mixing. And if anything, they're better off in school for the learning and in a structured environment where people are reminding them to wear their masks and to stay apart. So that's part of what we're struggling with.
Multnomah County health officials also say that getting more kids vaccinated will play a big role in keeping more kids in school.
Governor Jay Inslee says the state's hospitals need more help. He sent a letter to the White House COVID team asking for more staff. The governor says COVID hospitalizations doubled every 2 weeks over the summer. He's asking FEMA for another 1,200 clinical and non-clinical staff. The governor is making that request even as recent data show hospitalizations are coming down.
The FDA is expected to weigh in as soon as today on whether people should get a booster shot of the Pfizer vaccine. Last week, an advisory panel voted against booster shots for most people, saying boosters should only be for people 65 and older and people at high risk of severe illness. The FDA will make a final decision on the booster debate soon, but again, this decision is only about getting a third Pfizer shot. If you got the Moderna vaccine earlier or the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, this decision will have no impact on you.
You potentially have a scenario in just a few days where one person is eligible for a booster, but their 70-year-old neighbor who got Moderna is not.
Yeah, this is not the situation where we want to be, where people are eligible or not eligible based on which vaccine they got. This is part of the problem of the process that the FDA is trying to manage. This is why I think it'd be really helpful for the FDA and the CDC to come out with broader guidance across a range of vaccines and not just limit themselves to Pfizer alone.
That's an interview from the Today Show later this morning. The show will have more coverage on the possibility of booster shots. You can catch that coverage starting at 7 a.m.
Well, Portland is close to announcing where the city will build safe rest villages for the homeless. One site is the Portland Expo Center. It's a bit of a surprise because it wasn't on the previous list of possibilities. The city and Metro Regional Government owns the land, and talks are underway about the feasibility of putting an RV and car park on the property. Any deal to help the homeless would be a delicate balance. Metro still wants the Expo Center to host conventions and events in addition to this new village for campers.
The Expo Center is a 54-acre site, so there's a lot of space in various parts of the facility that could be used to support this. But it's part of our commitment to try and be a part of the solution here.
By the end of this month, the city will announce where it will locate 3 of these homeless villages. An announcement about 3 others will come later. Most will accommodate tiny houses. We'll certainly keep you posted on what Portland leaders decide.
The effort to redevelop the site of the old Blue Heron paper mill in Oregon City took a big step forward. Yesterday, we saw crews start to tear down the walls of one of the dozens of buildings on that 23-acre site. The Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde plans to make that site a mixed-use development featuring spaces for hospitality, education. They'll also have tribal areas and a long-planned riverwalk. At one time, this piece of land belonged to Native tribes, but in 1855, under the Willamette Valley Treaty, the land was ceded to the U.S. government. Then, 2 years ago, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde purchased the land, putting it back in the hands of Native Americans.
To get here, it just feels great because it's the start of something. It means something's happening out here on this property. And I'm excited about it. I wish I could fast forward 10 years, 20 years and see what goes up here and see how it impacts the community in Oregon City and to see how it tells our story to people.
Here's one of the cool parts about this project. Once it's finished, people will actually be able to access the Willamette Falls, which right now you can only do it by boat.
It's 5:10 this morning. We've been talking about fall starting this afternoon. Rod, it kind of feels like it out there right now. A little cloudy, a little wet in places.
Yeah, rain starting to approach the Oregon coast right now. There you can see it. So coming hours, this will hold together enough that you folks should get a good little bit of rain. Question is, will it hold together all the way into the I-5 corridor? And it looks like odds are decent that we'll see at least a few spotty light showers later this morning. A trace of rain, maybe 0.01, 0.02 hundredths, that sort of thing. Here's Futurecast at 7:30 this morning showing the rain already breaking up as it hits the coast. A little bit of rain starting to move into Yamhill County. Some spotty showers through mid-morning, and it even holds the chance of a trace of rain into early afternoon. Eventually today will become partly cloudy. So passing clouds coming in. Maybe a dab of moisture where you are, partly cloudy later today. About 10 degrees cooler, even 12 degrees cooler than yesterday. It was 86 yesterday with all that sun that we had. Today we'll be in the 70s. 62 out there right now. Again, clouds are starting to increase. 59 in Salem. Clear skies east of the Cascades, and we're in the 30s out in Burns and Baker City. Forecast numbers for today. So what we talked about in Salem, McMinnville, and Corvallis, some AM mainly traces of rain, maybe, and then partly cloudy this afternoon, mid-70s on average. Fairly light northwest winds expected. Similar situation up through southwest Washington. Longview 69, but Vancouver gets up to about 74 degrees. So tomorrow, some valley fog and then sun, and then the warm up is back on. I'm leaving my number at 80 tomorrow, 88 on Friday, warmer than yesterday, and then a little bit more pleasant this weekend. Growing confidence. A Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday could be another big soak. I mean, some of these really hefty forecast models were right last time, and one of the wettest ones now shows another 1.5 inches of rain. That's your forecast.
I'm looking at that 80 degrees on Saturday, Rod. Seems like good football weather for the Ducks. They will be home on Saturday, and we're talking college football next here on Sunrise because fans are allowed back in the stands this season, not only for Duck games, but also Beaver games. But we're not seeing packed houses yet in Eugene or Corvallis. More on the why in 5 minutes. But our first story after this break is a Verify report about the Pfizer vaccine. Now that Pfizer has said it's safe for kids as young as 5, there are questions about parental consent.